Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be painting up one of Khagra's Ravagers from the Warhammer Underworlds set. I like all four of the miniatures in this unit, but I chose the guy with the big shield and the battle axe. I've painted a lot of Chaos Warriors in the past, so this guy shouldn't be too bad. So I'm going to start off by priming him black. Now I already primed him black, but I wanted to put a coat of black paint over top of the primer because the primer is kind of dull, where putting the regular acrylic paint over top of it will give it a nice shine and just look better overall. And I'm just putting down a simple light layer on all of the armored pieces here. For the cloak, I'm going to start off with burnt red. I'm just going to put down a nice even layer over all of the fabric. And don't forget the loincloth up front. We're going to do that in the same color of red. And as I've said before, you don't have to use the exact same paints that I'm using here. A lot of mine are pretty old and they may not even be available. But if you use something similar, you're going to come out with the same results that I'm getting. For instance, any shade of a dark red will work here because we're going to work on the highlights as we go along. For all of the leathered bits, I'm going to start with this charred brown. It's a nice dark brown base that you can put down, and this will let us build up on it and lighten it up as we need to. This guy here, he's kind of wearing like a skin cloak, so I wanted to start off a little bit darker, and then we're going to just bring it up as we move along. And I'm also going to cover all of his belts with this. I'm going to do the boots with this, just kind of all of the little leather bits on this guy. I'm going to put this down for a base coat. You'll also notice that anywhere where I'm going to put gold later on, I usually do a base coat of brown down. In my opinion and in my experience, gold covers up brown, or it goes over top of brown a lot better than it does a lot of other colors. So I always like to put down just a layer of brown paint first, and then I'm going to paint my gold or bronze over top of this. I'm going to start using leather brown now to start building up that skin cloak that he has over top. I wanted to sort of get like a tanned hide look to it, and then I'm going to do a wash over top of this later on and then bring it back up. But for now, we're going to start bringing it up with this leather brown, just to lighten it up some and differentiate it from the other leather straps that he has on. I'm also going to use this leather brown just to highlight some of the straps on the weapon here. It looks like the weapon's wrapped all in leather straps, so I'm just using this here to just give it a little bit of a highlight, but you definitely want to leave the darker colors underneath and the black lines to show the separation of them. I use skeleton bone now to come in and do the skull on his belt buckle, and also to start doing the horns on his shield and also the horns on his helmet. Helmet horns can be a little tricky to paint. They just kind of take some experience, some trial and error with them. I'm still certainly not a master at painting them. Sometimes I can get them to come out really nice and sometimes they don't. I often question myself whether I want to start white at the base and then come out darker at the tips, or do it vice versa, dark at the base, white at the tips. This guy here with the ribbed horns, I think they came out pretty good in the end. Okay, here I'm coming in with blood red speed paints, and I'm going to put this over top of the cloak. I love the color of this speed paint. It just has such a rich red color to it. And one thing I like to do is I like to put down a base coat of a dark red and then come over top of it with this speed paint. I think that it just really makes the color pop and gives it a rich color. And that's one thing with these paints is don't be afraid to experiment with them. You don't always have to use them exactly as they're intended. I know I tend to use some of these as a wash, even though they're not, but I tend to go over top of other colors with speed paints just because I like the way that it looks. So don't be afraid to, to play around with them a little bit and go try something different. Now, very similar to what I just did, I'm going to use Satchel Brown speed paints to go over all of the dark leather parts, mostly the straps and the boots here. Again, I just like the way that the speed paints enrich the color of the base colors, if that makes sense. So a lot of times I use them to go over top like this, and I really like the effect of them. Here we come in with a little bit of lead belcher to do the axe blade and also the little bit of chainmail that he has on. I'm going to use Guilliman Flesh Contrast now to do a layer over that skin cloak, and also to put a little bit on his horns. I'm going to start shading them down so that the base of them is darker. Now I'm coming in with bright gold to paint up all of the decorative little edges on his shield and also his armored parts. And as I said, I like to put down that brown base. I think that the gold covers a lot better than what it does. If I would have just went over the black here, it wouldn't have covered as good. So that's just one thing that I like to do, is put down a brown base first anytime that I plan on painting gold. Now I come back with the leather brown and start doing the highlights on this skin cloak. I'm just hitting all of the raised edges on it here first. And then I'm going to put a little bit of skeleton bone. I'm going to use a little bit of that and mix it with this leather brown and bring the highlights up a little bit more. While I have this light color out, I'm going to go ahead and use some of it to do some edge highlighting on his boots. I'm just kind of going around on the creases, just all of the little edges that I could find, and just doing a light little highlight on them just to separate them out a little bit. Now I'm going to start highlighting the cloak with Mephiston Red. And here I'm focusing mostly on the edges and the raised ridges of the cloak. I want to leave the depressions in the cloak, or the low spots, I want to leave them that darker red so that they show a difference in the light and dark areas. In highlighting this cloak, it took me a couple of different coats to go over it, because I would put down an initial coat of highlighting on it, and then once it dries, it sort of calms down and blends into it. So I'd come back and do another coat on it. And that's one thing with this, you just kind of keep playing around with it and just adding it here and there wherever you think the light would hit it the most. And when I do highlightings with red, I don't tend to use white because it'll almost turn it more of a pink. If I wanted to highlight this up a little bit further, I would probably add a little bit of orange to it. That's kind of how I do my highlighting with red. Red can be a little tricky to use. I'm going to use Mechanicus Gray to start the edge highlighting on all of the black armored parts. And this, you want to just use the side of your brush to just kind of go over the edges, and it's very subtle, but it's enough whenever you stand back and take a look at it. It's enough to bring all of the edges out and make them pop a little bit more. And one thing I wanted to mention too was with this Chaos guy, I kind of took my time with him because there's only 4 guys in this unit here. So I wanted to take my time and kind of do a good job on all 4 of them. If you don't want to, you can certainly speed up this process. You can skip a lot of the highlighting and the different colors if you choose to. If I was doing a big unit of these guys, I would certainly probably go a lot faster and not get into all of the detailing. But since there's only 4 of them, I figured that I could take my time and add a little bit more detail to each one. I'm going to use plate mail metal here for the edge of the axe, and also to pick out some of the little studs that are on his leather straps. I'm going to bring back skeleton bone and just pick out these little stitches in this the skin cloak, and also just to hit the bones to give them a little bit of a highlight. With our guy all finished, we can finally start working on the base. And for this, I'm just doing a heavy dry brush of Mechanicus Gray, but any dark gray will work here. I used Ash Gray to bring up the highlights just a little bit further, and do another dry brush over top of the dark gray. I'm just going to pick out the little skulls that are on here, and there's also a chain laying on the ground. Just picking out these little details so that they show up. So yeah, a little cleanup around the rim of the base, and this guy is completely finished. I'm really happy with him. I like the way that he came out. I think that the red cloak really pops. I like the black armor. He's just a cool figure, although Chaos Warriors are just cool minis to begin with. I'm excited to get the other 3 guys from the band painted up. I think that they're going to look pretty sick all displayed together. So if you stuck with me, I want to say thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed watching me paint a little bit. I hope that this inspires you to get some of your miniatures painted up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.